Hey, what's up? And welcome back to another episode of the Relationship Schools podcast here, coming to you from Boulder, Colorado. My name is Jason Gaddis. I'm your host. And thank you for being the kind of person that gives a shit about relationship. We live in a world of disconnection sometimes, if you look around and you see that. And we live in a world of connection. And to me, connection gives us so many great healing and empowering opportunities. Other people. None of us want to be alone and die alone, I don't think. So I'm here to try to help you live a fulfilling life in relationship with others, all right? Because I think it's what makes our life deeply meaningful and rewarding. And the Harvard study, 80 plus years now, would agree with me, all right? Okay, if you haven't left a review, just go to your phone. If you're getting a lot out of this podcast, go to the podcast section if you're on an Apple phone and find The Smart Couple. Scroll all the way down, and you can just click with your thumb 5 stars. It's that easy, and just hit submit, all right? You can also leave a written review like this person did, who has the name AGS and then a bunch of numbers. Very strange, but I get it. You didn't want to be known. That's okay. But you say, I freaking love this podcast. I'm around episode 11, and I'm super grateful for this podcast and the important influence it is without a doubt having in the world. I imagine a wave crashing over the relationship world and moving and shaking the cultural norms surrounding marriage and partnership. Boom. And then going on to say other stuff that serve them. So that's an example of thank you. Obviously, you got something out of this. And if you are like this person, give us a 5-star review. Let us know what your favorite episode was and how it impacted you. All right. We are now enrolling and taking applications for the Relationship School. Go to relationshipschool.com/DPIR if you want to apply for our 9-month training. I know some of you are sitting on the fence still. It's been years and you've been thinking about this. Now is the time. People are longing for community. I think we do community exceptionally well. You're going to walk away feeling less alone, more connected, more empowered, and more confident in yourself. Guaranteed. Okay, so come check us out. It's edgy. It's fun. You're going to grow a lot. I want to congratulate also our newest coaches that just graduated. You can go to therelationshipschool.com/coaching, I think. Let me double check that. I also want to congratulate our newest coaches who graduated in October. Certified. We had 6 certified level 1 relationship coaches graduate, and they're now out in the world helping people like you. You can always hire one of our coaches, relationshipschool.com/coaching. Lots of amazing humans to choose from there. If you want to become a coach, come check us out. All right. relationshipschool.com/level 1, I believe, is our level 1 page. Okay. In this episode, I've got, a new friend, Vanessa Edwards. She runs the Science of People. All right, Vanessa runs the Science of People. If you go to scienceofpeople.com and her YouTube channel, also I recommend Vanessa Van Edwards. And her TED Talk's been viewed at least 2 million times, I think. She wrote an amazing best-selling book called Captivate, The Science of Succeeding with People. All right. So she's a human behavior specialist. She talks all about facial expressions, body language, voice tone, and hand gestures. And she's analyzed presidential speeches of which president does the most hand gestures in the last couple of decades. You'd be surprised if you watch some of her videos at the answer. They do tons, at Science of People, they do tons of amazing research on body language. So there's some really cool stuff she's up to. She's, been on the news tons. She's just been interviewed many, many times. And I'll make sure we include some of those important links in the show notes, okay? So Vanessa Van Edwards. We get into a lot of interesting terrain here. And she's got a really good practice if you're socially awkward or insecure or at that stage in your life or if you're just an introvert and you're not always up for the social outings and you're comparing yourself to charismatic people. She redefines charisma for you, right? We talk about faking body language. We reminisce about the middle school dances and high school dances and how that might impact your life still today. There's some fascinating stuff in here. So I think you're going to find this valuable. Let's do it. All right, welcome to the show, Vanessa Edwards.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm psyched you're here. Thanks for taking the time. Eager to get into it with you. I want to start, Vanessa, with just so the listeners know who you are. They just heard the intro, but how would you introduce yourself in a minute or two?
Sure. Yeah. So I run a human behavior research lab, and my mission is to crack the code of human behavior, figure out why we do what we do, how to predict it, how people work. And so I write books about it. My book Captivate, and do courses. And we put a lot of YouTube videos out on the science of human behavior and communication.
Yeah, so cool. And you were from Oregon, now you're in Austin. Like, what? Tell me.
I'm actually from Los Angeles, and I urban nomaded with my husband for many years. So we basically realized that LA wasn't quite the place for us. I love visiting, families there. Can't say that that's not wonderful, but wanted to try something different. So we sold all of our stuff, and we had our friends vote on different cities we should go to around the world that they thought we would like. And we did it for about 2 years, everywhere from Shanghai to Buenos Aires to New York to San Diego. And our two favorite cities of all the places were Austin and Portland. And so we did Portland for 10 years. And then we just moved to Austin about a month ago.
Wow. So cool. Mm-hmm. Were you a traveler before you met your husband?
Yes, actually, we met in China. So he was studying abroad in China. I was studying abroad in China. We met, fell in love. And so, yes, I was always a traveler. I actually thought I was going to go into like the Secret Service or the Foreign Service with my love of behavior. But I was sitting with someone who's very high up in government. And he said, if you continue on this path, all you're going to be doing is interrogating terrorists for the rest of your life. And I thought, that's not really a path I want to take. And so I pivoted into business.
Yeah. Wow. And what year was that, or how old were you?
That was probably 2007.
Okay. So you've been at this a while. And did you grow up like kind of into that stuff and body language or human behavior? Were you always the one tracking the family dynamics? Or
So I always thought that social skills, charisma, leadership was an innate talent, that you were born with it. And so the answer is no, because I thought you couldn't learn it. And I joke in my TED Talk, in my book, that I'm a recovering awkward person, which is true every day, where I just never understood social relationships. I felt like I always put my foot in my mouth. I never felt like I belonged. I had very few friends in high school and college. And so then when I was in college, I had an experience. I was with my professor, and there was a group project where we all had to write a paper together. And I went to my professor and I said, I will write double the amount of pages if I can do this project by myself, because I was so scared of working with a group, and I did not know how to communicate. And he was so kind, and he said, Vanessa, this project is not about the writing skills. It's about the people skills. And I totally broke down, and I said, I don't have those. I don't have those. And he said, okay, I want you to think about, and I was at that time, I was very IQ focused, test scores, GPA, very on the academic end of things. And he said, I want you to study for people like you study for chemistry. I want you to study relationships just like you study a foreign language. Make flashcards, look for patterns, read the textbooks. You can learn these skills. And it was the first time anyone had ever said that to me.
Yeah, what a great mentor. Holy shit.
I mean, just incredible. And I've written him many, many notes since then to update him on my progress. And it was also the first time I realized, as I dove into what was out there, starting with the basics of Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People, to Influence by Cialdini. And I realized that a lot of those books, which they're great, they were a great starting place, a lot of them were written by extroverts. And that's really hard, because if you're an extrovert, it's actually very hard to teach people skills to a non-extrovert. Basically, what ends up happening is the entire book is teaching you how to fake being an extrovert. And that only works a little bit, right? So that got me through college, right? Pretending to be an extrovert. And then I realized there has to be a better way. Like, there has to be a way to make friends and be likable in a way that's not just pretending to be bubbly and outgoing, if that's not my brand of charisma. So I started to dig a little bit deeper into the research. I always wondered in these books why there were no citations. And Carnegie that book is written in the 30s, I believe. So back then there really wasn't much research, but since then there certainly has been. And I was looking around going, where's the book that's science-based? Like where has someone looked up all of these claims and just tested them? And that was the start of our behavior lab, is seeing if I could test some of the claims that were so out in the ether, everything from fake it till you make it to have better body language to be interested to be interesting. All these cliches that we know, but if you're not an extrovert, they're a little hard to apply.
Yeah.
And so that was the start of the lab.
So awesome. And I love some of the things. I've watched many of your videos, and, from
Thanks.
the presidential kind of hand gestures, which, maybe we can get into. There's just some really interesting ones, right? In terms of
the cool thing is, because we made the choice many years ago to not be affiliated with an academic university. And there's pros and cons to that. The cons are very obvious. It's wonderful to be with an academic university. It gives you clout. They have great resources. They have the IRB, which helps keep you in the standards of the best standards of practice. But the pros are, it allows you to work faster. It allows you to work with much bigger data. So we're able to do 20,000 people in an experiment. Most experiments in an academic setting are 20 seniors. We're able to reach all kinds of professionals as opposed to just students, which sometimes they answer differently than professionals. And so we decided to not partner with an academic university, which means we get to be very adventurous in our experiments.
Yeah, that's so amazing. And what's cool is why I wanted to talk to you is the research. There's a ton of research behind what you share, in your book and in your talks. And so I want to, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about that. But I want to back up just for a minute to talk about that socially awkward stage. You were lucky enough to maybe run into a mentor at some point. For a kid who's listening, we do have some young teens and young adults listen to this podcast. And I'm curious if they feel socially insecure. What's like a first step they can make?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. It's the best place to start. So the one thing that I want to share is that there is no one brand of charisma. So it used to be believed, and a lot of people skills teachers teach this brand of outgoing extrovert. That is charisma, especially in American culture. That seems to be, that is what charismatic means. The real truth is, though, that charisma comes in many flavors. And when you actually look at the people who are very charismatic and you ask people, what does charisma mean? And then what we did is we asked people, who is the most charismatic person you know? And then when we studied them, you see that charisma looks very different. Yes, of course, there's the outgoing extrovert, but there's also the quiet, powerful observer. There's also the expert, the knowledgeable, competent, wise expert. There's also the nurturer, someone who's empathetic and compassionate and a great listener. And if you begin to think through the most charismatic people you're like, you know what? That's true. I do know an outgoing extrovert, outgoing charismatic, but I also know this person who fits in a different box. So that's the first thing to think about is, what is your flavor of charisma? What does that look like for you? On your best day, and this is the kind of practical aspect of this tip, on your best day, around your favorite people, in your favorite location, who are you? And that's really important. So to sit down and grab a pen and paper if you can, and just make 3 columns on your piece of paper. The first column, I want you to list all the things that make you thrive. The places, the people, the topics. So like for me, for example, it would be podcasts. I love kind of deep, interesting one-on-one conversations. It would be my best friend, my husband, my daughter. It would be any kind of learning scenario. It would be art classes. All those things would be on there. In the middle column, I want you to write a question mark. These are the ones where you're a little bit in the middle, you're neutral. Sometimes they've gone well and sometimes they haven't. So for me, that might be a boardroom. It might be a backyard barbecue. Sometimes those have gone well and sometimes I'm horribly awkward. It might be a friend's birthday party, right? Those might be all in the middle. It also might include people. So like could be a person in your life and sometimes they bring out the best in you, but sometimes they enable bad behavior. Okay. Who are those people? And the last column is your toxifying or your toxic people.
Mm-hmm.
So these are the people that drain you. It's the places. So for me, that would be nightclubs, loud bars. Oof, I do not do well when I can't hear well.
Yeah.
I also have certain people in my life that I have to create a lot of boundaries around.
Yep.
Being really clear on these triggers helps set you up for success, because if you want to set yourself up for success, you should pick everything in the first column.
Totally.
If you know that you have to see someone in that last column, it's a boss you can't get rid of, or a colleague you can't get rid of, or a family member. We've all been there.
Yeah.
You know that you have to cushion that person or that place around things in the first column. You bring a wingman, you go a place you're comfortable, you set up recharge time before and after. That's how we begin to set up. When we talk about boundaries, that's how we set up boundaries, is being extremely clear on those 3 columns.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. Listeners, so that'll be an action step toward the end of the podcast. We'll review that. In terms of the fake it till you make it, I want to ask you about this because some of us do that. And I certainly spent a lot of my life in my younger years kind of moving from friend group to friend group because I didn't know who I was. I was pretty disconnected from my essence. And I was trying on different friend groups, right?
Of course. Yes.
Okay, I'll grow my hair out and be kind of a deadhead and smoke weed every day. I'll be a fraternity guy, cut my hair and wear a tie. I did a lot of different moving around, right? And it eventually got me in enough pain that I had to go on a journey to find myself, essentially. How would you coach my former self in between these transitions where I am faking it till I make it, because belonging is one of the deepest human needs. We don't want to be cast out, right, from a friend group. So I will contort myself in order to fit in, and we do that as adults sometimes too. So how would you help me there?
So 2 things is, one, I think that happens a lot. So for people listening, hopefully that resonates with you as well, because it resonates with me as well. The first thing I would say is a mindset shift is when you say to yourself, I'm going to fake it till I make it, it immediately puts you in an inauthentic place. And we know that authenticity is transparent, it's contagious, it's sexy,
It's congruent,
it's confidence building, it's so good. And so the reason I don't like the mindset of fake it till you make it, just because it immediately makes you unauthentic.
Okay.
A better mindset for almost the same thing is the experimental mindset. So experimenting is a totally different way of thinking about trying something. You even said trying something on. Carol Dweck is an incredible researcher who's researched the growth mindset. And she's found that people either have a fixed mindset, meaning they can't change their innate abilities. This is the way I used to be. Or a growth mindset, meaning that we can learn and adapt and change. People with a growth mindset are more successful. They're happier. They have better relationships. So fake it till you make it makes it really hard to grow, right? You're basically saying, I am not this way, and maybe I'll be that way, or maybe I'll have to fake it for the rest of my life. Saying, I'm going to experiment with this group of friends, with this person, with these people, with these conversation starters, with this brand of charisma is great because it flips you into a growth mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And that means everything that you do is good. Meaning, let's say that you go out, you're like, okay, I'm inspired by this podcast with Vanessa and Jason. I'm going to go out on this rooftop bar. A friend of a friend invited me. It's kind of a blind date scenario with friends. I'm just going to try it. I'm going to experiment. We're going to see what happens. You go and it's terrible.
Yep.
It's loud. It's awkward. You're like, what am I doing here? Well, a failed experiment is good news. It means you've ruled out a variable.
Yeah.
You've tested a hypothesis and now you know. So then you can come back, and I'm a big tracker, and this is the second thing I was going to say, track everything. You should have a social journal. So this is, went out with this person, hypothesis, thought it was going to go great, really trust this friend. What happened? It was too loud for me. I was overly tired from my day of work, and I was hangry. What did I learn? My friend, I still trust her, but I can't go out on a weekday. It's too much. I have to go on a weekend. I should eat beforehand, and I should never pick somewhere that's really loud, right? I'm just making it up.
Sure.
But that way,
Awesome.
Every bad thing is a good thing, and every good thing is a great thing.
Yeah. I mean, you're really reframing the whole thing as a learning opportunity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there
exactly. And when you do that, it comes across as authentic too.
Yeah. And when you said, I'm going to experiment, I just feel myself relax versus the fake it till they make it. I feel tense and kind of up like this,
Yes.
Interesting.
100%. There's very much physical reactions to this, because not to get too artsy fartsy on you, but I think that, when we talk about energy, think about anxiety or social anxiety or awkwardness. I think emotion often lives in our body, and there's some research that suggests this is true. So if you had your first really big social experience at a high school dance or at a middle school dance, even worse, and it was not a good experience, that, right? You immediately feel like, think back to your middle school dance.
I'm
like
having some
walking in,
flashes.
right. Like, what did you wear? What did you smell like? What did it look like? What did you drink? Right? Like, you can think of all those things. It's a very vivid memory. And if it was a good experience, it's my belief that it tends to inform how you choose social experiences later. If it was a bad experience, I will tell you, anytime I go into a loud club or nightclub that's cavernous, it brings me right back to middle school. Like, my body remembers it. I start to sweat. I get anxious. I swear I get acne, like in the moment, like immediate, like 12-year-old acne, because I think that it like lives in your body. So fake it till you make it. There's a lot of body history there.
What's up, relationship schoolers? Jason here. Quick interruption. Remember, it's time to register for Deeper. So here's a testimonial from Christine, who completed Deeper this last fall and is moving on to our level 1 coaches training. Check out what she had to say about our program.
When I started Deeper back in February, I was in a space just coming out of a 25-year marriage, and this is my second marriage. So feeling like, I don't have this relationship stuff down. I'm not at all the same person. There's so much that has changed about me after being through this experience that I'm almost unrecognizable in my relationship capacity. And I've had people mention that to me, like, what are you doing? You're so happy, you're so strong and confident. What have you been doing? I have taken my power back in making decisions for myself, caring for myself, in choosing who I surround myself with. I relate differently to people now, and I speak my needs, which I did not do before, set boundaries with people. Absolutely would recommend Deeper to anyone, no matter where you're at in your path with relationships, even if you feel like you're strong. I believe that Jason and his program gives such a unique perspective that even if you feel like you're strong in your relationships, you will learn something. And then if you're feeling like you are struggling, coming into this space, you will learn tools, you'll get confidence and support.
All right, awesome. Christine had a huge result. So can you. Relationshipschool.com/DPIR to apply. All right, back to the podcast. Vanessa, what do you say when, sometimes we just don't feel like getting out of bed, or we don't feel like showing up and doing our thing that day. And so we kind of put on a mask to like kind of get through the day. For the listeners that do that sometimes, and granted, it is inauthentic, right? And people can feel that. Do you recommend going the more transparent route of like, I'm having, I'm not in a good space today, and so I'm showing up this way? Or do you recommend maybe an experiment here where, that I just try something on for a few weeks or days? Because sometimes we feel that way for weeks, days, or months. Like, what do you recommend in that scenario?
So actually, what I recommend in this scenario is that you find your rebooting activities. So in adult life, it's great to say no when you can, right? So first action step is open up your calendar, like right now, pause, open up your calendar and say no to one thing you're dreading. So if you can say no, I empower you to say no. I have a whole video tutorial on how to say no to social obligations. So first is say no. Second, as an adult, sometimes you can't, right? Like, you just got to show up to the meeting. You just got to go to work. You just got to go to the party because you promised your friend you would go. Okay, so if you're in those kind of scenarios, you have two options. And the first one I want you to try before being transparent, because that's the third option. The second one is actually to try to reboot yourself. I truly believe that we're all have these operating systems, ways that we operate, and we can reboot our system. So you know how like on your computer, if it's been a really high bandwidth day, you're downloading, you're uploading, you're opening this tab, you have 15 different tabs open. Your computer is like, gets like a little bit slow, like the fan turns on, and it just needs a hard reset, right? or empty the trash, right? Like that's what you have to do in your computer.
Yeah.
We are the same way. So if you feel like you're a little overheated, like you're a little bit much, I want you to think about now, right now, when you're not like that, what could you do to reboot your system? So this could be everything from taking a nap to calling your funniest friend. That's a really great one. Going for a run, meditating, doing yoga, watching really funny YouTube videos, watching a nostalgic show on Netflix. Nostalgia is actually a great emotion to snap out of a funk.
Jumping in a cold creek.
What'd you say?
Jumping in a cold creek.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. You could probably list 10 or 15 more things that would come to you. Get a list of 5 of them that you are pretty sure work, and try all 5 of them if you can. We have a little playlist called 10 videos to recharge your brain that we've picked out. We have a laughter lunch playlist. Anything I can do to help you on that, let me know, because that's actually a really powerful way to reboot and change things. And the last option is what you mentioned so wonderfully, Jason, which is just be transparent. So show up, and when people are like, hey, how are you? Because everyone says that. It's always the first question. Instead of being like, good, fine, which is a total social script, say, it's just been a week. It's been a day. It's been a day. My win today is that I'm here with you, but it was so hard to get here today. Right? Like, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Okay, cool. Those are great tips. Awesome. Now I want to just jump into marriage for a minute, because that's largely what this podcast is about. Is we get in these long-term relationships, and we tend to pick up on lots of little cues in body language, tone of voice, and facial expressions that our partner does or our kids do. And it sends us maybe right back into childhood, and we're like with our angry mom, and it's our angry partner or something. I'm curious how much of your research has dug into this, and also just what you have to say about kind of the home front and body language and facial expressions.
Yeah, so there's a lot of research on the benefit of nonverbal, I would say, aptitude in relationships. I think there's one study that shows that even just recognizing microexpressions, knowing how to read them, means that you're going to have higher relationship satisfaction. So just having any kind of aptitude, whether that's watching free nonverbal videos on YouTube, listening to this podcast, being aware of nonverbal, step number 1 is going to put you leaps and bounds ahead. The second thing that I would recommend is thinking about, this is a very small part of Dr. Paul Ekman's research. So Dr. Paul Ekman is the founder of microexpressions. He sort of created this whole industry around microexpressions. And there's a very, very small part of his book that not a lot of people talk about, but I teach a lot because I found in my work that it's really powerful for long-term relationships. And it's facial punctuators. Have you ever looked at that at all?
No, I've never heard that.
So basically what he says is, so he argues that there's 7 universal microexpressions, but he also argues in the very small part of the book that certain people punctuate their emotions or their expressions with one facial expression that's their favorite. So for example, not everyone has this, but most people do. My facial punctuator is a surprise microexpression. So when I'm not surprised, but just trying to punctuate something I'm saying, I will raise my eyebrows up my forehead. I will widen my eyes, and I'll often open my mouth a little bit wider. That is not because I'm constantly surprised. It just is the way that I punctuate my words. I don't even realize I'm doing it.
Okay.
But I know this about, first of all, I know this about my presence, that when I'm with someone, I tend to look on the positive side, delighted or awe-inspired or intrigued. On the con side, I can look naive, young, like not in the good way, and possibly not competent, right? Surprise means not knowing. So I know that about my own presence. It's very, very important that you know your punctuator. That's the first and foremost.
Okay.
If you do not immediately in your head go, do I have a punctuator? What I want you to do is I want you to video your next 10 phone calls, just your end. So turn on your photo booth, turn on your phone, and just video your end of your next phone conversations. And then don't even think about it. Just like keep it up there and don't even look at it. And then watch all the videos back, and you will very quickly see what your punctuator is.
Okay.
The most common ones are surprise, contempt. So some people show the little smirk, the one-sided mouth raise, not when they're contemptuous at all, just as a punctuator.
Yeah.
That is dangerous and very important to know that you are just even though that's not anything about what you feel, it could be the reason why people feel put off by you or closed off or judged, even if you're not meaning it.
Yeah.
So contempt is another really popular one. And then anger is the third most popular one. So a lot of the times people are concentrating in anger. Like pinched brows, the little lines between the brows.
Yep. Oh, you there?
Now that doesn't mean they're actually angry. It just means that that's how they're thinking. That's how they're concentrating.
Yeah.
So first, figure out what yours is. That's the first most important thing. What messages are you sending to your partner? And second, figure out what your partner's is.
Yeah.
So what is your partner doing? The reason why this is important is because it is the cause of so many miscommunications.
For sure. Yeah, it's
a really easy one to figure out.
Yeah. What about a flat affect? What are the experts and what do you say about the flat affect where it's just like, because that can be very threatening for some people because we don't know what's going on, right?
Yeah, it's horrible. So there's nothing worse than a still face while you're sharing an excitement, right? So like you come home and you're like, babe, I'm so excited. This happened at work and I connected with this person. Oh, great. Great. Right. So there's nothing worse than that. Or worse, you're sharing something deeply personal or angry and they're totally blank. You must go watch the YouTube video. It's called the Still Face Experiment. I show it in all my presentations.
Yeah, we show that one at our trainings.
Have you seen that one before?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So if you have not watched it, you must watch it. It's of a mother who is with her baby and showing a still face. Now, what's really important about this video is the mother is there. She is present. She is leaning in. She is making eye contact. She's fully focused. And still, the baby is horribly upset. I share this with a lot of managers and leaders and bosses and my very still-faced students. So if you have a partner or you're listening, you're the still-faced partner. I share this because I say, look, eye contact, presence, and leaning is not enough. Our baby inside of us needs facial expressiveness.
Yeah.
We need mirroring. We need to have the facial responses. Being present is not enough. And so if you really, truly want to be compassionate and a good listener, you have to show you're listening and not just be present. So I highly recommend watching that video and think of the inner baby in all of us.
Yeah, totally. So that brings up something you've kind of alluded to here as we start winding down, which is, can facial expressions then be learned? We have our habitual ways. And I'm almost hearing you say, okay, that's fine, but you can actually learn to kind of make your facial expressions be what you want them to be. Is that true? Like training, kind of?
What research would say, what Dr. Paul Ekman would say, and I actually asked him this, is facial expressions are different than microexpressions. So a microexpression is 1/25th of a second. It's extremely fast. Anything over a second is a facial expression, and facial expressions can be controlled. So for example, if I widen my eyebrows in fear, that is very, very difficult to control. Botox is probably the only way, right? That's probably the only way to do it. But a facial expression, so me holding my expression in surprise, is absolutely controllable, right? Because that's longer than a second. Yep. So yes, it is definitely possible to control your facial expressions. It's much harder to control your micro expressions.
Got it. And what would you recommend one facial expression that people, the most common one or the one you see that people could work on the most? Is it like the smile? Is it the furrowed brow? Is it the still face? Like if they were to...
I would actually say it's the furrowed brow, just because anger is such a powerful emotion that if people think that you're even a little bit angry, it puts them on the defensive. So one thing you should know about human behavior is, I talk about this a lot in my book, is the responses to our microexpressions and our emotions are more even important than recognizing the emotion itself. So if someone sees anger, it's our natural behavior to do two things: go on the offensive. So it's your fault. How dare you? You're wrong. You're bad. Or go on the defensive. It's not my fault. I didn't do it. I don't know why that's happening. And so if you're accidentally in anger and you're dealing with people who all the time who are feeling defensive or angry towards you, it might be a subconscious reaction to the face that you're showing them. And luckily, furrowed brow is actually a pretty easy thing to feel. What I would highly recommend is when you're working alone is put tape here just a piece of Scotch tape. And every time you furrow your brow, it will fall off. And you will get really quickly good at recognizing the feeling of when you're furrowing your brow.
That's so cool. I furrow my brow a lot because I'm always like thinking, analyzing, but I could see for some people it might be perceived as anger, right?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, totally. So let's set the record straight. How much of our behavior is actually not nonverbal? Like, this is kind of
it's
the
such
big
a
one,
hard
right?
question.
That gets thrown around.
Yes. So, you probably have heard the stat that 93% of our communication is nonverbal, which is actually not the whole picture, because that was based on a study where Albert Moravian used one word, the word hello. And so it was one word. So of course that would be a lot less important. There's studies that show it's 70%. I've seen 60%. I would say a good number to keep in your mind is about 60% of our communication is nonverbal. And it's really different for situations and context, but that's facial expressions, voice tone. So voice tone also counts in there, and body language.
Cool. And do you get, because you are an expert in this, do you get people that kind of start to feel insecure around you because they're like, wait, you're watching me. You're like
Always.
analyzing my body language and shit.
Always with my new friends. My old friends know that I'm harmless. With my new friends, I always say, I'm a people reader, not a mind reader. So I just look at behavior. I do not see your thoughts. And by the way, all your behavior is just a symptom of what you're feeling. And I'm listening to you on a deeper level, hopefully, than anyone else has ever done before.
Yeah, that's so sweet. What's the, as you look around in the world right now with all that's going on, being a human behavior specialist and a kind of a body behavior reader, what do you see? What's sort of your meta view of where we're at as a species? Or as a culture?
It's a good question. The immediate answer that popped into my head, so I'm going to go with it, is one of the things that concerns me the most is loneliness. And what I mean by this is we get hundreds of emails every day at Science People. So we reach 27 million on YouTube and, so many on social media, and we get all these stories. And one thing I have noticed over the last 12 years is the emails have changed. In the beginning, the emails were much more about flirting or I want to read my boss, very tactical, very strategic tips. And in the last, especially 2 to 3 years, maybe since 2016, I've noticed that the emails are much more stories of loneliness, where it's not even really about the tactics or the strategies. That's secondary. It's really, I work alone. I'm a virtual employee. I don't have a significant other. I don't have a lot of friends. I feel like I'm so awkward in my interactions. I can't even do them. And so therefore I stay home even more, which makes me even more awkward, which makes me, and it's a cycle.
Yeah.
And so what I'm very worried about is as we become more virtual, as we have a lot of our relationships on text and Snapchat and Instagram, and we're working more virtually, we're just getting out of practice, which means that when we're actually in person, we're more awkward, our inhibitions are higher, we're don't have as much natural charisma with people because we're just not doing it as much. And so my biggest concern and what I'm seeing more and more is that we have to force ourselves to practice.
Yeah.
It's actually something that we have to say, what is my deep, authentic, fulfilling social interaction this week? And I'm serious. Like, I want you to open up your calendar and I want you to look and I want you to make sure that you have a fulfilling, deep, incredible interaction sometime in the next 7 days. And by the way, that might not be with your partner. And this is really hard. I have a young baby, 15 months old. One thing I've noticed with my husband is we have gotten into the logistics trap. We talk a lot, but it's like, did you change the poopy diaper? Did I change the poopy diaper? What's the schedule for tomorrow? When are you going to work? When am I going to work? Are you taking the car? Am I taking the car?
Oh yeah.
And so it might not be with your partner. Our date night, yes, if we make it that way. If we say to each other, we're not talking about anything logistical,
right?
Just us.
Yeah.
So we have to practice. We have to make an effort at it. And I think that that's the greatest gift we can give the people in our life, as well as trying to make them as comfortable as possible and giving them authentic interactions as much as we can.
Yeah, so cool. Last question, Vanessa. I here at the Relationship School, we're on a mission to reach 1 million teens with relationship education because so many people are just, we never got the class on how to work out our differences in school. So
Yeah.
that's one of the things we're about. And I ask all my guests this question: if I were standing in front of a room of 1,000 teens, and I could only give them one piece of relationship advice, and you were the person to whisper that in my ear to tell them, what would you have me share with them?
Teens are a unique breed, very unique breed. They only hear things in special ways. I would actually probably tell a funny story about your own failure or your own awkwardness. And the reason for that is because I do believe that laughter is the lubrication of learning, and that we really don't learn a lot if we're not putting down our defenses. And that's even more true of teenagers, especially. They're told so much, everyday teenagers. They're taught from teachers. They're talked out to parents. They're constantly getting spoken to. And so for them, especially, the way that they really learn is stories. And the one thing they need to hear more than anything is everyone fails. It's really good to fail.
Yeah.
And everyone feels awkward at some point. And so if you have an awkward story or a failure story, there's a reason why the very first line of my book is, my name is Vanessa and I'm a recovering awkward person.
Yeah.
And so what is your awkward story or your failure story that you can share that makes them feel like theirs isn't so bad? Or when they have one, it's just a funny story they can tell.
Beautiful. Yeah. So good. Such a good reminder to stay like that. Thank you. Okay. And gosh, we're out of time, but I have so many more questions, but I'm going to direct people to your YouTube videos and your website. So where can people just kind of binge watch all this cool body language stuff?
For sure. So my YouTube channel is Vanessa Van Edwards. And then most of my deep stuff is in Captivate. That's my book. It's wherever books are sold. If you like audio, I read my own audiobook and do all kinds of funny voices for you. And then, of course, our newsletter is where I give all kinds of juicy tips. And our course is People School, which is, I love it, matches Relationship School. It's all the people skills you never learned in school.
Awesome. That's so cool. Okay, Vanessa, thanks so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
Okay. What's up, Relationship Schoolers? That was a good one, huh? Vanessa Edwards. Go check her out at scienceofpeople.com. Google Vanessa Edwards TED Talks, or go right to our show notes to watch her TED Talk. It's very good. Okay, this woman knows her stuff around the body language department. And I thought it was pretty interesting to interview her here because so much of what we talk about here is reading other people in our couples coaches training program. It's all about teaching couples how to read each other accurately, read each other's body language. So at some point, Ellen and I, my wife and I, will do an episode specifically for the couples and how we do our coaches training and why that's so vital. All right. But in the meantime, check out Vanessa. My action step for you today that I thought was really useful was the social journal. Start a social journal or add to your existing journal in the back or in the middle and just call it social journal pages or something. Like the morning pages, right? I did those years ago. Any morning pages fans out there? Super helpful for creative stuff. Okay, sorry, got distracted there. What was I saying? Social journal, right. Keep one and do social experiments rather than fake it till you make it. Just do social experiments, single folks, when you're dating. I learned this, I learned that. So any experiment is just a learning opportunity. There's no failure, there's no success, it's just learn. That's success, is I learned something about myself. What does work for me, what doesn't work for me. Ooh, what fell flat with a bunch of people. We learn from these interactions, okay? Socially awkward. I get socially awkward still in brand new environments where I feel maybe like an outsider. I think that's really normal because we don't feel like we belong yet. We don't maybe feel welcome yet. It's normal and it's okay. All right. So you social awkward folks, I hear you. We got you here. Come learn, about this relationship, vulnerable intimacy stuff with us if you want. You might feel socially awkward, but pretty soon you're going to feel socially safe, and you're going to, your flower is going to start blooming. It's pretty cool to watch our students that way. Okay. Of course, the other action steps are subscribe to the podcast, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, okay, Stitcher, iTunes. Leave us a 5-star review if you're getting served here. Please, we're getting close to our goal of 500 5-star reviews. Thank you for being a listener, subscriber. It means a lot. I really appreciate it. You can give something back to us by just leaving us a review this holiday season. Okay. Grateful for you listening. If you didn't listen and leave reviews and, share this with your friend, I would stop doing it because I'm like, well, no one cares. But man, that means a lot. Okay. It keeps us going. And I really want to thank my team also for helping us crank along here. Luis, Alexis, Jess, and others who have been a part of this and are trying to help our podcast get to more people. All right. You can still sign up for the Relationship School, of course. So you got to interview with Steve, relationshipschool.com/DPIR if you want to apply. All right. We are very particular about your readiness. So make this kind of investment in yourself. Consider this for 2020. It's a very big deal. And we want people like you who care a lot about connection, love, working our shit out with other people. All right? Yeah. Come play with us. Okay. All right, folks. And this holiday season, try to give yourself a hug and give someone else a hug that's genuine, that you mean. All right? Talk soon. Hey, thanks so much for listening. Relationship School fans and Smart Couple listeners, please subscribe to this YouTube channel. All right? Do us a favor. Subscribe. Share one of these videos with a friend. All right? We want to help the planet get their act together around relationships, and you are one of them, so thank you.